Oh, hey there, and welcome to episode 24 of Weekly Lit. Today we're going to discuss memoirs because I've read a few in the last few, maybe last 6 months, across a few just by chance, not by any sort of um, determination or forethought, but um, I thought I'd share some thoughts about memoirs and a few, some better than others. And I'll start with a few real brief discussions, just some that kind of pass through that of various levels. And it can be an intriguing area of literature. The dangers with memoirs are that they become heavy-handed or self-aggrandizing for obvious reasons, and so it's a fine line to walk to keep them interesting. And I'm sort of accepting from this discussion things that are just sort of pop culture memoirs. I mean, those are fun and they have their place, but rather than just paging through looking for the good stories, these are memoirs that carry a little more of a literary function to them or literary intent. Um, Whether they achieve that or not, it's a mixed bag. But those are the kinds of things that I'm talking about that are what I enjoy. And so, first, a new one from this year, "It Never Ends" by Tom Sharpling, host of the Best Show that was on WFMU. I think that's the station in New Jersey for years, probably 2 decades, and or just short of 2 decades. And now it's on. The Best Show is on as a podcast, so you can listen live, but also as a podcast. And so I have the signed bookplate on this one. If you are a fan of The Best Show and know about it, then this is a must read. Quite funny, politics I don't necessarily agree with, but Sharpling's a very funny writer and a funny guy, and has a very dry and subtle sense of humor and pretty intelligent. So, for those of you, if you already listened to The Best Show or you want to give it a try, uh, uh, that's sort of I guess, the barrier to entry of whether you might be interested in this. If you know who he is, might not be the best memoir to start with, although there's plenty of stories of interest in there. I got this one, Nick Offerman, The Deer and Antelope Play. Got this one from the library, and I've gone about halfway through, and not a big fan of this one. The purpose of this seems to be for Nick Offerman to, as it says, the pastoral observations of one ignorant American who loves to walk outside. Um, and It's just not very interesting. His writing is fine and clear, but I think his character of Ron Swanson, which is a fantastic character on the TV show Parks and Recreation, benefited from, in retrospect, after reading this, my gut reaction is that benefited from great writers rather than, it was a good performance by him because I do like him and particularly in that role. But it's just sort of heavy-handed, these memoirs. But it's not very entertaining. So I took a pass on that. On the other hand, also a library book in the by Tom Vitale, who was a producer for his show or shows. It's a fantastic memoir, and if you know who Anthony Bourdain is, he did some shows for the Travel Channel and CNN, and I think the Food Network or one of the cooking channels, and so forth. And we'll get to his memoir shortly, but this memoir by his producer, Tom Vitale, is fantastic because it talks about not only behind the scene things and the personalities involved, but sort of the troubles obstacles that they ran through, but also the type of people. There's some depth to it, talking about type of people that were on the crew, and particularly Tony Bourdain, as he refers to him. And um, he's a very entertaining writer. I got both this and the Offerman one at the same time, and started reading both of them at the same time, kind of trading off. And I've just stuck with In the Weeds by Tom Vitale, because he's an engaging writer, and just tells a story very well. And so quite funny, and excellent subject matter. And so that's I would pick that one up, and highly recommend that if you are a Bourdain fan. If you're a Bourdain fan, then obviously you have to start with Kitchen Confidential, his memoir from probably 18 to 20 years ago, which is phenomenal, and also an entertaining read. Anthony Bourdain was quite a character. I mean that in the best sense of the word. Did travelogue. I guess I would just call him as somebody who did travelogues, and very creative. Um, just a person you would want to have dinner with, and he was a chef. Yeah, you would want him to fix it, and then or prepare dinner, and then enjoy it with him. Just really engaging, interesting guy. And this memoir from the outside, going back to the Vitale one, reveals that he's certainly a flawed person with a temper, and some issues that went on. But when you go back and read, if you read Kitchen Confidential or have read it, you'll know it's just quite a great storyteller, and somebody that you could, like I said, the best way to explain it is somebody you would just want to sit down and spend 3 hours with, and then do the same thing the very next day. And if you haven't read Kitchen Confidential, by all means, jump on that one. That's a great starting place as a memoir, and probably one of my favorite memoirs. Uh, one of the moving on to what many people consider, and I can't disagree, as possibly the best written memoir of all time, is Stop Time by Frank Conroy. And Conroy wrote this in the late 60s. I think it was 1967 that it came out. And it was a memoir about his youth and growing up, his father's death. I mean, there's a lot going on in there, and I don't want to spoil all of it or much of it. But his insight and self-analysis, you can sort of get um, shades of The Catcher in the Rye, and the insight, like I said, self-analysis, just inner thoughts that are conveyed onto the page, and it can be earthy and just very honest and human, is how I would describe it. He doesn't shy away from the truth. I'll put it that way. Inspired. I know David Foster Wallace was a fan of Conroy's writing, and it inspired him and many others, and I can see why. So I found this to be a very engaging memoir, and highly recommend it. That's Stop Time by Frank Conroy. And so I'll read a little excerpt from this. Excerpt from when Frank had run away from home, and had also enlisted the aid of a traveler's aid representative, because he got stuck without money and needed to try to get home. And this woman had started into a juvenile facility overnight, and he ran off again while she was assisting him, and then came back the next morning. And so this is his approach to her having run away from home, and then having run away from the traveler's aid station the night before. So from Stop Time by Frank Conroy. It started to rain just after dawn, a heavy downpour that crashed against the roof of the car and woke me up. I raised my head, saw the slanting white lines through the doorway, and then went back to sleep. Hours later, when I crawled out of the bag and got to my feet, the rain was still falling. I stood by the door and slapped at my clothes to get the powder out. Clouds of it drifted from my head as I ruffled my hair. I waited for a lull in the rain and jumped to the ground. I should say, mention that he stayed in a railway car filled with fertilizer. That's what the powder was from. It took me some time to find my way back. I was amazed how far I'd run, at least a mile. Wet to the skin, I walked through the station doors, crossed the huge waiting room, and opened the door to Traveler's Aid. She was there, standing behind the counter, her head coming up as I closed the door. I avoided her eye. "I hope you spent a pleasant night," she said. "I slept in a boxcar." She went to the end of the counter and raised the leaf. "Well, it's traditional, I suppose. Very foolish, though. You could have been locked in." Holding up the leaf with one arm, she said, "Come on, you're soaking wet." "It's all right. Please don't argue. You can dry off in the bathroom." I moved down the counter and slipped under her arm. "My God, you smell awful. What was in the car?" "Fertilizer." "Well, you better wash too. There's only a sink, but you can't go home like that." "Did you get him?" "Yes, before he left for work." "What did he say?" "I explained the situation and he agreed to wire your fare." "Nothing else?" She hesitated. He asked if you were all right, and I said you were." I knew she was lying, but I remained silent. She opened the door to the bathroom. "Take your things off and hand them to me through the door. I'll see what I can do. I brought my iron." She walked me to the bus station, both of us moving under her umbrella. After a few steps, I took the shaft. "Let me hold that," I said, shifting it to give her better protection. We covered the short distance in silence. At the terminal, I stood by the bus while she went inside to get my ticket. I felt a flash of annoyance at Shawn. He was too cheap to send the extra couple of dollars for the train, which I would have enjoyed, so I had to take the bus, which I hated. "Here's your ticket," she said at my shoulder, "and $1. 20 cents is for car fare and 80 for a sandwich and milk at the rest stop." "Thank you." People elbowed past us. "Guess I'd better go on in." "Yes, if you go now, you might get a window seat." "I'm sorry I had to run away last night." "That's all right. Think about what's ahead now." She took a step back. I climbed into the bus. There was a window seat in the rear along the far side, and then moved quickly and sat down. Staring through the rain streaked glass, I watched the white puddles on the black asphalt of the empty parking area. After a while, the driver climbed in, pulled the door shut, and started the engine. Turning back the window, I saw her standing outside under her umbrella, watching me. She'd come around the back of the bus and stood about 20 feet away. Neither of us moved. Then, very slowly, the bus rolled forward and she was gone. So that's the excerpt from Stop Time by Frank Conroy. Uh, Very enjoyable memoir. So if you have suggestions of memoirs that you've enjoyed or comments on any of the ones that I have mentioned, um, let me know. Obviously, a wide variety of memoirs available. So let me know what you think. Make comments on the show. You can always email. Please share if you like it, and let other people know. I'm just looking to kind of spread the word about good literature and great literature. So anyway, until next time, read harder.